Yo guys, I recently saw this video and I saw the dislike to like ratio 2000 to 687, which is pretty high dislikes. But some viewer told me that the dislike ratio for return YouTube dislikes is not accurate because it is actually extrapolated. It's not 100% accurate. It's from user behavior because not everyone uses the extension. But it's still pretty damn accurate, probably within 5 to 10% or so. So it begs the question, why is this Smite 2 already dead on arrival video so controversial? Now, Big Fry TV,
right, so I have something.
We're not going to watch the whole video together, but Big Fry TV does a passionate explanation for why Smite 2 is being handled by its devs in a pretty okay way. So what is happening is that for Smite 2, the developers have said that they are not going to be taking the entire backlog of 10 years of skins that were developed and sold. They're not going to recreate all of them and make them in Smite 2 upon release of the game. And many people have felt that that was upsetting. But they came out with a pretty good system where they are taking all the money that you spend in Smite 1, which is a game that will continue to be able to be played, and they're going to take that money and give it to you as credit points in Smite 2, which you can then spend on new skins in Smite 2. With the caveat that 50% of it has to be new money and 50% of it can be used as credit. Which means that you would have $10,000. So let's say you spend $10,000 on skins, which, by the way, oh my god, that's quite a lot. You would then have $10,000 of credit in Smite 2. And if you wanted to use the entire $10,000, you would have to spend another $10,000. And you would then have $20,000 worth of skins. I say worth because it's not like you can sell it like you would sell a house or something. But you would have $20,000 worth of. Yeah, 10,000 is a lot. I'm not saying anyone did. I don't know anyone that did. I'm just naming an example that you can bring forward your skin, and then 50% of it is gonna be, given back to you via credits. So some people have gotten really mad. I looked up some Reddit threads and whatnot, and Big Fry kind of jumps into that. We can look at a small little piece here.
Something that I think is relevant to this community but isn't necessarily, FPS related. But Smite 2 just got announced yesterday and it's already causing quite the stir in their community. If you were to take what Twitter is saying literally, the game is already dead on arrival.
Which is of course pretty dramatic, and it requires us to understand what's happening with Smite exactly. So Smite 1 is by now about 10 years old, and it has a maximum Steam player base of 31,000 at its peak, but I understand not all of Smite is being played over Steam. It also gets played over console. So this is actually a game I want to try out sometime in the near future. It is a third-person MOBA, which is a pretty interesting concept. I hear another game coming out called Predecessor, which is also similar to it. Some people like it more, some people like it less. Most PC players aren't on Steam even. Oh, there you go. So Smite is of course a bit more niche, but many are compared to League and Dota, if those are your measuring sticks. So Big Fry ends up talking about it and says, hey, it actually isn't that bad. For every gem that you spent in Smite 1, for your purchase, you'll receive legacy gems, which can be used to pay 50% of all your in-game goods. I think that's pretty good. I don't think that's that bad. According to Smite's developers, they said it would take 246 man-years of development to port every single skin into Smite 2, and that would just be prohibitively expensive. And I would have to agree with that. That's really hard to do. They even said they're gonna release skins on a regular basis, re-release some of those skins that came from Smite 1. They're gonna try to port them over with time, but they're not gonna be able to do so immediately. I think that's pretty. So it took 246 man-years to make them, probably. 10 years. Yeah, they developed them over 10 years. So what they're doing is they're gonna remake Smite entirely inside Unreal Engine 5, and Unreal Engine 3 is what it was built in, which is of course a bit dated by now. So I watched this video and he takes the side of Smite and says it ain't that bad. People are causing a big ruckus over something that really isn't that unreasonable when you think of how they could have done it. They could have done it like Reforged, where they completely scuttled the original game. People that have their Warcraft CD find that they can no longer go online with it. You have to install Reforged. which, you know, that wasn't that popular of a decision in the end by Blizzard. Here, Smite 1 will continue to coexist, and Smite 2 will be, you know, their new game, mostly the same, but built on a more modern engine, therefore probably better looking. Then here is a dev interview, and I want to take a fair look at what they're saying. The truth behind Smite 2 came out yesterday. Someone posted this to me that I should watch it. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Travis Brown. I'm the general manager at Titan Forge Games.
I'm Ponpon. I'm an advanced game designer at Titan Forge. I work on Smite 2.
And I'm Alex Cantatori. I'm the executive producer of Smite.
Playing past the baton.
Before we go on, Kuniva said they are taking your skins from you and saying that you have to spend more money to get them back. Yeah, and to that, and I can kind of see how that might be a sore point with some people. But first of all, they're not taking the skins from you because you can still play them in Smite 1. So they're not technically taking them from you. Smite 1 continues to be playable. So that doesn't really sound right to me. No skins are being taken. They're just not carried over to Smite 2, and it is not practical, nor are they financially big enough to do such a large port over. It may have been, I think, if they could only make Smite 2 on the condition that they bring every skin forward, they may have just said, we're not going to do it. So I feel like we're looking at either Smite 2 wouldn't be made at all, or it gets made in the way that it gets made. And as a Smite fan, what do you prefer? And as a non-Smite player, what do you prefer? And I feel like you should prefer the way that they're doing it now, which is that Smite 2 does get made. I don't imagine Smite fans are be like, no, we don't want that. And as a non-Smite player that is looking to maybe try it out, I also prefer this. The biggest issue to me is all the gods pack not transferring, as its main selling point was all gods forever in Smite. And so that, again, that sounds like a decent point. I don't know what gods pack are. Maybe you can explain me. But are games forever in general, right? At some point, some games shut down. I don't think all games are forever. And so any money you spend on skins or gods pack, eventually, I think most people know they're not going to get that money back, right? Like, I've bought Heroes and Heroes of the Storm, and I probably spent 500 to 1,000 on Heroes of the Storm in skins and heroes. But if they shut down Heroes of the Storm today, I would be quite upset. But I wouldn't say it's completely like coming as a surprise that it would happen eventually. I don't think it's going to happen now. It doesn't even look like it. They had some patches, but eventually it's going to happen. No? How do customers react when a game shuts down that they've spent money on? Like, if it's like a multiplayer game, eventually that moment is going to come for every multiplayer game, right? Anyway, let's check the next.
This whole time, obviously the big reason why we're here, amazing reveal, that being Smite 2, now on the way. A big question I'm sure a lot of you have already answered in detail, but would love to know some more. What can people expect or look forward to the most when it comes to Smite 2?
Want to take it?
Yeah.
No, you take it.
So I think Smite 2 it's kind of everything that we always dreamed Smite could be, right? Smite is a game that is incredibly fun to play, right? Like the core gameplay combat, the MOBA strategy on top of like this great action combat, like nothing else gives you that same rush. And like, I love Smite, I've been playing it since closed beta, so I get really passionate. But there's a lot of rough edges in Smite, right? There's a lot of stuff that feels super clunky. There's a lot of stuff that has just been kind of built on top over the years, right? So Smite 2 takes that really fun core gameplay and makes it just feel clean and crispy, and then adds a lot more depth for people that really want to get into like the strategy about like what items do I build, or like how do I...
Okay, so strategic depth can be added without upgrading the engine. Almost, like for the most part, I would say that's almost always going to be true. Things generally don't feel clunky, and therefore you cannot have strategic depth. I would say that it is possible that you build spaghetti code on spaghetti code on spaghetti code. I say spaghetti, it's not like, you know, I really am a coder myself, but like when you build code on code on code, it's possible that there's going to be limitations or like bad interactions that are really difficult to fix. And I could see how cleaning that up would be a plus. But I wouldn't say strategic depth comes from remastering an engine.
I play this map the most optimally, right? Like it's just a better version of Smite, but it's so much better that it's hard to appreciate until you actually get to try it for yourself. So we're just super excited to finally have it out there.
And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to piggyback off that too. We've seen a few games out there release their second version.
Yeah, I think we overused the word spaghetti goats for sure. Of course, he's going to promote the game. It's his own game. Wouldn't you guys promote your own game as well? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just trying to look at the actual facts is what he's saying. Strategic depth and less clunkiness. I haven't played, so I don't know how clunky it is. But I'm going to probably take strategic depth exception to that. Were you getting bullied in school, Grubby? Because you give similar vibes. I was not bullied in school, actually. I neither bullied nor was bullied. I tried to teach a bullied kid how not to get bullied. I told him, stop getting bullied. Just behave like me. I'm not getting bullied. But it didn't help. By the way, you sound like a bully by classifying people as bullyable people. So shame on you, Bluffy IDGHAF.
Versions, right? Notably CS2 and Overwatch 2, and these games have to come around and decide when is the right time to do so. You guys did so 10 years after the initial release. So what was the main motivation 10 years in to say, hey, let's go with 2?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it started. We're always looking for something different to do with Smite IP. We made all these different game modes throughout Smite's history, and once we kind of figured out that we wanted to make the move to UE5, so a new engine upgrade, we started to quickly iterate through different game modes. And I think about at the end of 2022, so about 13 months ago, we quickly created a new game mode using the Smite IP in about 4 weeks using UE5. And we were like, wow, that was really, really cool. It was quick. We got it done really fast, but it wasn't quite it. So we were like, let's try something different. So because of the work we'd just done in the 4 weeks, we pivoted to some other type of game mode, and we were done in 1 day. And
so they're starting to realize how many more ideas they can explore and try out in a new engine. So they're thinking, if we want to expand this game and get more player base and attract more people or retain more people, we're going to have to do so from a new environment. It must be a painful consideration to upgrade to a new engine and rewrite your entire game. They could even have decided not to call it Smite 2 and just make an entirely new game. But there's a risk in that as well. So this is essentially falling within the risk inhibition strategy that many, resmoten, resmote, smote, remasters are generally quite safe. The new Little Mermaid, the new Spider-Man, the new Warcraft, even if it's shite, it's still going to be watched just to compare it. Reforged was profitable as well. So it is much safer to rebuild the same game than to come up with something new and experimental. And especially if these devs are going to be like, hey, Smite 1, we're not passionate about it anymore. We're just going to fizzle it out, phase it out. We're going to make something new. Play this one, please. That's going to go down wrongly into many people's throats, I would say. So I think this is a safe decision, but they're also seeing that more development can be done, more testing can be done with the new engine.
And we were like, wow, that was really quick and easy. This is amazing. And we thought, what if we actually just try to recreate Smite in UE5? And we pulled 5 people from the team, and 4 weeks later we had a demo that we're going to show, I think tomorrow, basically a playable version of Smite.
Oh, so that's today, actually.
In UE5 in 4 weeks. So we thought at that point, why would we not just dedicate a team to creating Smite 2 and UE5 and as fast as possible, as fast as we were able to do those two game modes? It was just a no-brainer to do it. Had nothing to do with.
But how long did it take them? I wonder. How long did it take them to make Smite 2?
This is year 10, we should do something. No, it was literally once we got the hands on the new tools and saw how effective we could be, it became clear that we needed to create this experience for the Smite fans.
And if I can just real quick, the reason why the speed that we can do things in UE5 is so important is because we know that so many people love a specific god in Smite. And for us to go from Smite to Smite 2 and having to remake every god, it took us 10 years to build them all the first time. if it's going to take us 10 years to build them all again, that was just not going to be something feasible, right? But with these new tools, we can now build the gods quickly. We can give people the Smite experience they want in a time frame that actually makes sense. And it's just really exciting.
We can actually keep going right off that too. I would love to know, and I'm sure a lot of people would too, what's the biggest difference maker between UE3 and UE5? For a casual like myself, I have no idea, right? So what are the defining factors of making a move like that?
Yeah, so UE3 was made in 2006, so it's a very old tool set, and things like the UI being in Flash, which is a discontinued product, things like designers not having tools to be able to really impact how the game is developed. We have to often go to programmers to do things for us. UE5 basically has a full...
They have to go to programmers to do things for them, even though they are programmers, just because they don't know that old language anymore. So they're finding what, like some 70-year-old that still codes in Flash.
Whole suite of things for each department built inside of it. So animators traditionally have multiple software.
Designer is not programmer. Oh, okay. All right, sure. Game developers are often not programmers, different skill set. Okay, sure. But they surely have their own programmers, no?
Suite of things for each department built inside of it. So animators traditionally have multiple softwares they work in. UE5 actually puts a lot of that into the engine, and in a way that you can start manipulating it even if you aren't an animator. We have Blueprints, which is a visual-based programming that allows anyone to hop in and start building out things and roughing out prototypes, where before that kind of system only existed in UE3 as Kismet, which was a very, very limited version of that. And so
I asked that question again when this video is done, Bristlebow.
So UE5 just supercharges each aspect of game development and makes it so that they're all interconnected within the same toolbox. And that just
Did you guys follow any of this?
allows things to speed up way more rapidly than you could in UE3, which was just a mixed match of different softwares depending on what your studio wanted to do.
Oh, and just technologically, you're talking about 10 years of improvements on lighting and on graphics processing, things like that we can take advantage of in UE5. So the game just looks like it's a modern game, whereas in Smite, using UE3, you find that you have to make a lot of concessions to make the game perform. And what we're finding now is we just keep cranking the knobs up on UE5, and it just gets better and better. So we're excited about a lot of the possibilities there. Give people the Smite experience that they remember, but just make it look more amazing is that's what I'm most excited about.
It sounds very focused on their current player base, right? Give people the Smite experience that they were remembering. I wonder to what degree they're thinking about marketing for the game, trying to get the game to people that haven't played before.
UE5.
Example. Yeah, when we first actually went to UE5 to build it out, we pulled in assets from UE3 to just see how it looked, because we just need a set of visuals so that we could get our first playtest going. And without any touch from artists or anything, just the model being there with the new lighting, it already looked like a completely different game. And that was the moment crystallized oh, that's how much different it's going to be working within this engine. And once the artists actually get in there to start modifying it, it gets even better. But that just baseline expectation that you get in UE5, that was a huge eye-opener for me, how much better this was going to be.
And then one of the few points of contention.
Is it free to play? Yeah, Smite is free to play, right? It's free to play. It is reliant for its profits on skin purchases, which is why it was a pain point for, I guess, a lot of fans that Smite, all the hopes and dreams for Smite are going to move to Smite 2. You can say Smite 1 will continue to exist as many times as you like, but if you're being realistic, there's not going to be development for the game anymore, except maybe the most game-breaking bug fixes, right? It doesn't make sense for them to start developing new gods in Smite 1, I think at least. Generally, of course, the devs are going to be wanting to work on the new one. They're just not killing Smite 1 or doing a forced move over to placate fans. Somewhere down the line, World of Warcraft players became so disenchanted and felt so removed from the direction that World of Warcraft retail was taking that they started demanding WoW Classic, a return to the days. And Blizzard ignored that claim for years, and eventually they made it, to the cheers of fans. And now a smaller but sizable player base prefers WoW Vanilla or WoW Classic, but now they're re-releasing all the expansions in WoW Classic again, so they're basically catching up the timeline, but then some systems are different. I don't know how that makes sense, but I guess for Blizzard, so long as it makes money, and for fans, so long as they're getting content in the game. It's actually really confusing to me what's happening with WoW Classic and how they're like re-releasing expansions over and over in Classic. And then you have the WoW token. But anyway, if you take away the original, people are going to be mad, so they leave it up. But let's not pretend that Smite 1 will have equal focus as Smite 2. So all those skins that they have became less relevant in Smite 1 until they get ported over or until they can have them in Smite 2. And they may be feeling like they want to spend more money. But so essentially, let's say if you have $500 worth of skin in your Smite 1 collection and you don't want to pay any extra money, you're done. But you wish you could use them forever, that's going to be kind of sour for you. Right? Because you would have to spend another $500 to have $1,000 worth of skin inside Smite 2, and you may not want to do that. And the relevance of your original game has become worse. Smite 1, not as bad as a complete shutdown though.
But still a big talking point for these games that have to port over, right, or cross over eventually. When it comes to porting over those skins, you guys decided that you could not do that. Could you guys maybe explain for someone like myself and a casual, like what is the difficulty of, or what's the explanation of why that choice was made, and then what's the partial resolve you guys put out?
So Smite's been around for 10 years. You know, we spent 10 years making about 1,600 skins, I think there are in Smite, which is a lot of skins. And UE3 and UE5 are fundamentally different engines. And it's not just, oh, it's a better version. People think that, oh, 3, 4, 5, it must be connected. The way that they approach things technically are completely different. So the way that you create a material, like...
Yeah, it is good to remember that everything you buy digitally can be taken away at some point, right? It's not great feeling, but it can be taken away. Which is actually why when they say like games could cost $100. Let's see, there was like news recently. Someone said games should cost $100 or more for what they offer you. And I do kind of agree in some way. Let's say for Dota 2, if Dota 2 is as enjoyable for me as it is now, and it had an upfront cost of $100, knowing what I know now, I would buy it. I do think that I'm getting more enjoyment out of the game than $100 worth. That's a personal decision. You may feel differently, and that's totally your right. Right? But on average, if games are starting to cost $70, $80, $90, $100, how much of you would say, well, I guess I'm not buying games anymore, or I want to play only free to play, or I'll only buy like the small ones. So if that gets taken away, or if the equivalent or greater amount of skin value gets taken away, like, yeah, you could be quite upset. Yeah, but would you have tried it in the first place if Dota 2 cost $100? I don't know. Maybe if there's a playable demo, but yeah, that's a good question. Starfield was pretty expensive. I think I spent $90 on Starfield because it was like 60 or 70 initial and then extra price if you wanted to play early or something, like a few days early. So I spent that. And then after 60 minutes, I hated it and I refunded it and uninstalled it.
Like the texture on a model, the way that the effects system works, everything is completely different. So we can't just copy paste a skin from Smite 1 to Smite 2. For a normal skin, not a tier 5 that is a fancy evolving skin, if you're not familiar with Smite's tier system, which is silly, it takes about 8 weeks to get a skin from Smite 1 to Smite 2 of actual, like, a person working.
What?
It takes about 8 weeks to get a skin from Smite 1 to Smite 2 of actual, like, a person working for 8 weeks.
No. That's nonsense. You know, I was actually on the side of Titanforge, of the Smite devs, until this. But that's a cap. He's gonna say psych. He's gonna say psych soon. I don't think that's true. I don't think that could possibly be true.
And with 1,600 skins, we did the math, and it was like 240 person years or something if we're trying.
Does that even make sense? He said 1,600 skins, 8 weeks. 1 week is 40 hours. 8 times 40, 30, 32, 320 hours. So 1,600 skins times 320 hours. This many hours. 24 hours in a day divided by 24. 21,000 days. 21,000 years. Wait, let me try again. 1,600 skins. It's 320 hours per skin. It would take 512,000 hours. No. It's 8 weeks, 40 hours per week. That's 320 times 1,600 skins. Okay, there we go. That's 512,000 hours. It's this many full days. No, let's not do the day thing. It's this many hours. You work 2,000 hours per year, right? Roughly. Oh yeah, it makes sense. 2,100, 2,000 hours. Yeah, exactly. So the maths is correct, but the only problem that I have is them saying that it takes 8 weeks to make a skin to port it over from A to B. That doesn't make sense to me. They just talked about how Unreal Engine, it is so easy to develop fast. They were able to make a test build of this in a day. They were able to make a test build of this in a week. They were able to do a test build of this game mode in 4 weeks. Everything is so fast. It's such an agile environment, etc. But now it takes 8 weeks to make one skin. To copy a skin. You even have the template of what it's going to look like already. In theory, it could be more difficult to copy something than to create something anew. But I feel like it should be more easy. Like, yes, you have to make sure that if there was a red flag here, or if there was like some trinket here, that it should also be there in the new one. But does it really have to look identical one-to-one, or just mostly there? Plus, you can literally just copy the homework and make it look different. I think this is BS. Does this count as backseating? Hell yeah, it counts as backseating. I, a non-artist, a non-game designer, and a non-developer, take objection to the statement that it would take eight weeks to make a skin. Anyone here work in skin making that thinks that it makes sense? He's exaggerating a bit. I think he's exaggerating a lot, which makes me less trusting of the original reasoning for why all the skins are not going to port over. Initially, I thought, makes sense, they ain't that big, etc. But now I'm thinking there is a partial financial profit incentive, which, by the way, surprise Pikachu. Of course, people do things for financial, but at least be open about it. And now I feel like it's a little bit less honest. He said 1 person a week and considered work days that way. Skins are super easy if you reuse the model. Well, they're not reusing the model because they need to remake the model. He said 8 weeks for 1 person to work alone. Yeah, but even that, I don't know if that makes sense. How did the original skins get made? Starting from 0 is faster. Exactly. How did the original skins get made? They have 1,600 skins, and all of them took that long to be made. So they spent 250 man years on that. So either 250 people worked for a full year to release them, or 25 people worked only on that. Maybe that's why. Maybe they have an artist department of 25 people, and they fully worked on the 1,600 skins for 10 years. Maybe that's what happened. And they just took the amount of people that are in their art department, and they saw, okay, this is what they put out in 10 years. And therefore, that's how long it takes. But they didn't know they first got scammed by their own artist working slow. But still, I feel like copying is easier than if for 10 years nonstop. No. For 10 years, normal working time, 2,080 hours. I think it's the voices and voiceover that could take more time. Yeah, skins come along with new animations, new voiceovers, new effects. You mean like this? New spell effects? Yeah. That is possible. That would add to it. That's probably why. 25 people per year worked on these 1600 skins in order to animate them, make their aesthetics, make sure that their hitboxes are correct, spell effects and everything. Yeah, that's but 2 months? Yeah, maybe. It still feels like quite a bit. And I know, look, 25 people, 8 weeks divided by 25 is the same as one person, 2 months. Like it doesn't matter. I'm equating them. I understand that. It feels like a lot, but maybe, yeah, it depends. Maybe it is possible that it would take that long.
And to get all the skins over from Smite 1 to Smite 2, and we were like, geez.
8 weeks total or 8 weeks total man hours? 8 weeks man hours is what he claimed. Which might mean that 8 people worked on it for a week to fully bring one skin to life.
If we're trying to do that, we wouldn't have the time and the capability to make Smite 2 as awesome as we knew it could be on the gameplay side, because all of our resources would just be going towards, well, we got to port all these skins. So we put a lot of thought into how do we make players feel rewarded and like we're giving them their money that they spent in Smite 2, but in a way that, you know, will let our development team be able to make the amazing game that they really want and have the time to do that. So what we came up with was a system called Legacy Gems and Divine Legacy, where in Legacy Gems, you're going to get every gem that you've ever spent in Smite 2. And gems are like the currency that's real money, basically.
The way they're doing it is super fair. 8 weeks for a skin doesn't sound too bad, to be honest.
And you can use those to pay for up to 50% of almost anything in Smite 2 until you've used up your balance. So skins, battle passes, events, everything like that will be 50% off until you've used all of your legacy gems. Some things may be 100% you can use with your legacy gems, but most things will be 50% off. And then there's also a Divine Legacy program where we look at all of your accomplishments, all the things that you've unlocked in Smite and done there, and we carry over a lot of that to Smite 2. So you can see I have a badge that shows I owned Archon Thanatos in Smite 1, which is a really like famous skin that people like. Or you can see I had 70 stars on Susano in Smite 1. Like I played that god a lot, and I want to show that off in Smite 2. So you'll be able to do that. You know, we couldn't move all the skins, but hopefully players still feel like, hey, I still have all my money. I still feel respected because all my accomplishments are there, and people can see, you know, what a baller I was in Smite as I enter this new generation of a better Smite.
I feel like they're making a mistake focusing on these issues early on in their marketing. I mean, I don't know, like, sometimes it's best to ignore issues. Sometimes you're taking the chance that your audience can reasonably perceive what you're trying to do. Like, let's say if you have nothing to hide, you're not being deceitful, you know, everything is fair, you're needing to make a profit, but you also want to make the players that spend feel appreciated, you give them lots of freebies and whatnot, you do everything right, and then there's a major uproar, you're expecting general positive response, but suddenly some people are cooking up a stink, calling you like terrible, greedy, whatever. You know it's not true. Wouldn't you defend yourself? I think I probably would.
Questions left, I promise, but this is a personal curiosity because I really do enjoy Smite 1, but then finding out this update that Smite 1 and Smite 2 are both going to continue to live on as is. So can you explain how that's going to work? These two games progress.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious
separately.
about too.
Yeah, I can start. The Smite 1 development team is separate than the Smite 2 development team, and you can see it even in in the patch notes show today, they were talking about item changes that don't immediately apply to Smite 2 because Smite 2 we're rebuilding the foundation. So we actually share some design changes that we came up independently from each other. So if you notice, that there's teleporters that are in the Smite 2 maps, and what is the Smite 1 team adding? Teleporters, but their behavior is completely different, and where they teleport to and go, from and to.
They can have different development?
Is completely different. So we intend to continue to do that. Smite 1 is a game that we
So they are keeping people working on Smite 1?
love, and they're continue to be passionate. The content that we're creating in Smite 1 will also be available in Smite 2. So even the content that we're creating on Smite 1 will convert to Smite 2, but they're creating the content in the Smite 1 Smite 1 game with the intention of it transferring. But all the design choices that they're making won't necessarily be relevant. If they change how Amir's wall works in Smite 1, we will still treat Smite 2 Amir completely different.
That's interesting. It's kind of like a real branching off, just like WoW Classic actually. Except instead of first killing it, or let's say evolving it and not having an original form, they are openly, consciously deciding to split them off and to allow each the freedom to develop it differently. But I don't know how it's actually going to work out. I feel like one of them will eventually be better and be preferred and will be much more popular. I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I think one of them will be more popular, and then that one will get the love.
I think for us, the reason why it was so important to keep Smite 1 going, right, is that there are a lot of people who play Smite 1 who are on Xbox One, they're on PlayStation 4, they're on an older PC, right? And we want to make sure that they can still keep playing Smite and be a part of the Smite community, even if they aren't ready to upgrade to the current generation of consoles, right? And also, we want to make sure that if you want to play your favorite god that isn't in Smite 2 yet, if you love some old skin that we weren't able to port to Smite 2 and you want to keep playing it, you can do that. And, Smite 2 feels very Smitey, right? It's a similar game, right? But I am certain they'll
I don't think they're going to put that in the marketing blurb. Smite 2 feels very Smitey. It's a similar game, but quote-unquote Titanforge 2024.
be some people who like the way Smite 1 plays better. And if you like the way Smite 1 plays better, we want to make sure that you can keep playing that game, right? We just want you to be a part of this community, whether you choose Smite 1 or Smite 2, though we hope most people will choose to move to Smite 2 because it's pretty cool. So,
Why is this guy spreading his legs like that? It's because his crotch is listening to everything that's being said. You see, he's got his phone recording there. He didn't want to put it on the floor. And if he puts it on the side of his legs, on the outside, there's a risk that he would shove it off. But as long as he remembers to man spread, he's got a safe little pocket on the chair where he can keep his phone. It's probably on record, so that in case the video gets corrupted, he can still do a written interview.
I'm so sorry. Are you guys good on time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious because when it comes to this split too, we were talking earlier how is there any concern about this being like a RuneScape? RuneScape 3 and old school are very much separate games, and it's very noticeable, right? They're ran completely differently as well. Content and everything is just so different. Are you guys at all concerned about splitting the player base, or is that something you're welcoming with?
This is the number one question. I got a sponsorship a few years ago for RuneScape. I thought that's cool. I know that's a game that's very popular with many of my audience, so I think it's going to be a good fit. I want to find out more about it. I think it's just generally a good game experience. So yeah, I'll take the sponsorship. I'll try it out. I end up playing it, and it was the new one. And during the stream, where of course I have to be professional and give it a fair chance and whatnot, there was many people asking, "Why are you playing this one? Play old school RuneScape. It's better." First of all, it's a little naive for those viewers. If you're being sponsored to play the new one, you can put two and two together that this is obviously an intent by the developer to show the new one, not the old. They have more financial incentive to do that. Secondly, you're not just going to switch to another game when you're sponsored by something to play it. Let's say you get to play it for an hour or two. Let's say I'm sponsored to play League of Legends, and then people are like, "Can you play Dota instead?" when it says sponsored league. It's like, oh yeah, I'll do that one instead. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I played the new RuneScape and the old school one. Some people preferred it.
Full arms, realizing that very well could be, and it could still
The
be.
new one is the old one? What? You have it backwards? Well, you played the old one? No. Oh, what? Wait. Wait. Do you mean they remade old school one? Well, which one did I play? I played the... I played the one... Oh, I played retail, let's say. I played the one that developed into its final form. I played the modern one, yes. Okay, you're saying the new one is the old one. It came out newer, but it's actually looking older. It is recapturing the older RuneScape, yeah? Just like WoW Classic is the new one. Yeah, so I played the new one, which is the RuneScape 3 or whatever. And we're going to call the new one the old one. As to not make it confusing. No, it's the old one. Exactly.
Be successful.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So I think that the rollout of Smite 2 is going to be relatively gradual, right? So at first, when we first go into alpha, it'll be up on the weekends, like 1 weekend a month. And then from there, once the game gets to a good point, it'll be more 24/7, right? And then eventually it'll go free to play, right? But we see it as kind of a gradual transition where most people will good points, right? So, at first, when we first go into alpha, it'll be up on the weekends, like 1 weekend a month. And then from there, once the game gets to a good point, it'll be more 24/7, right? And then eventually it'll go free to play, right?
Hold on a second. The alpha of Smite will be open only in the weekends. Then it's going to be open 24/7, aka just like as long as any multiplayer game is open. Then it's going to go free to play. But Smite 1 is already free to play, and Smite 2 is going to be free to play. Does this mean that they're planning to charge people for early access, like some game devs have done? Alpha is going to cost. We're going to have FOMO paid access. That's one of my favorite systems. Paid FOMO access is one of my favorite systems. I love the anxiety that it gives people, the feeling of missing out, and I love the privilege of getting in early by throwing money at something. Yeah, but it's normal. It's closed testing. Yeah, it might just be closed testing. Free to play might mean... Yeah, oh, you think he's using free to play as a non-monetization word, as in always free to play? But then how does it make sense that it goes from 24/7 access to free to play? Because free to play is 24/7.
But we see it as kind of a gradual transition where most people will move over to Smite 2, but they'll move over when they're ready, when they think the game is ready for them, when it has the gods that they want. So I guess in the short term, yes, we understand that the player base will be split, but we think over time more and more people will choose to move to Smite 2. And yeah, I think that that's okay for us. I think the other thing is like the two games are trying to be, what am I trying to say? Like in RuneScape, I love RuneScape. We did a crossover with RuneScape. You can play with RuneScape skins in Smite. And, I think that they changed a lot from old school RuneScape to RuneScape 3, right? And appeal to a different kind of player. I think that both Smite and Smite 2 are going to appeal to a very similar player, so you're more likely to want to move to a Smite 2, most likely.
And really,
I feel like this guy says the most without saying much.
just if I can touch on that, we've had how many players? 40 million players play Smite over the course of the lifetime, and the game has grown to a roster that is now 130 gods with the next one released. And with Smite 2, it's an opportunity to recapture a lot of new players, or some of the players that have played Smite before and lapsed, and now maybe it's a little too daunting to get into Smite right now. Smite 2 will be a perfect reset. a smaller roster of gods as they first initially get into the game. And if you really love playing Opwash, right, and he's not in Smite 2 yet, then Smite 1's still available for you, and you'll continue to play that until Opwash makes his way into Smite 2. Yeah.
For each of you,
Would it be better for them to release Smite 2 when everything is ready? Would that really cost them money? Because usually, I wonder, I don't know how the financial situation is for Titan Forge. Probably not affordable. Yeah, they want to start selling things already in Smite 2, and they cannot just sit on it for so long, perhaps. Dota 2 released with fewer heroes? Yeah, but let's say, I don't know how many heroes Smite has, probably like 100. Smite 2, let's say if it releases with 20. Actually, I have a recent example of it. Some of you may have seen ROTS, Resurgence of the Storm, which is a Heroes of the Storm user-made map inside StarCraft 2 map maker. And it plays almost just like Heroes of the Storm. But there's only 15 heroes. And Heroes of the Storm has 90. So why would I now play this when I could play this? Now, if Blizzard shuts down HOTS, this will be gone. ROTS will still exist. And 15 will be more than 0. But now HOTS does exist. In fact, it's getting patches. So it makes me wonder at the viability of this, as well made as it is. Smite 2 comes out with how many heroes? 30? Okay. As a new player, it's not like I am experiencing a full reset there for a level playing field. Not at all. There's going to be 95% or 80% experienced seasoned Smite players, and I will still start from very far behind. Right? And as a seasoned player, I would be missing 70% of the hero roster. So I don't think it's necessarily something players would want. He said 136. Yeah, 130. I don't think players would want partial release with just a small subset of heroes. I think only devs want it because they want to start selling and promoting the game, probably. Oh yeah, ROTS does have 2 new heroes, true.
what are you looking forward to most for Smite 2 when it's finally here?
Someone else.
He's got to think about it. About it.
I think the thing I'm looking forward to most is seeing everyone's reaction as each character comes out and us going through that development cycle. I'm a god designer, combat designer by default, so like that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited. And getting a chance to look at each character holistically and seeing what we can do to make them better, make their quality of life feel improvement, or like have improvements. Things like Chalk's axe being able to be re-hit so that it destroys. That's something that doesn't happen in Smite 1 that now happens in Smite 2. All those little things we can do to make those characters just feel so much better. That's the kind of stuff that I'm really looking to kind of geek out on, and I just can't wait to be able to do that for every character in the cast.
Yeah, and I think like I'm excited about the starting point, but I'm more excited for like where the project goes and how the game evolves from there, right? So a very specific gameplay feature. There's now an interact button in Smite that you can use to interact with the map. So there's a new way to contest objectives and do certain things, like you can open a gate or various things. And this single button has opened up so many interesting gameplay twists that our environment art team has been playing with. And even just the first few are amazing. And I'm thinking back to, man, do you remember ugly Smite 10 years ago with broccoli trees and how it didn't have half the stuff we have now? And I'm like, man, can you imagine what they're going to do with the interact button in another, year or two, let alone 10? Like, I mean, I just think there's the foundation is so much stronger that where we can take this game, it really does feel like, the sky's the limit, right? Are we going to be Fortnite? No. But like, can we be the best version of Smite? Hell yeah. And I'm so excited about it.
I think I changed my answer to that one.
Sorry, I get like
I don't know. The reason why I passed the mic is it's a struggle for me. I feel like I'm almost never content.
Okay, I think I'm good for the rest. We can of course watch the rest, but I think this is cool. It's just sentiments and stuff. I got the facts out of it as I need to, and I'll be trying out. Yeah, I'll probably try out Smite 1 soon, and then check out Smite 2 when it comes out as well. Cool to see a little bit more info about this.